Hi, I'm Kristen O'Neill, and today I'm going to talk to you about how you can use atmospheric perspective in your landscape paintings to create more believable depth. When to do that, when not to do that, and easy ways to know how to shift your color and your value. Let's get started. Now, atmospheric perspective is how we show as a painter that the mountains, let's say in the back of the painting, are further away than the mountains in the front. And so here, if we look at this painting I did of the Highlands of Scotland, you can see that we've got a lot of rainy clouds coming in, and that's put a lot of moisture into the air. And so we get atmospheric perspective right away. So what happens with atmospheric perspective is that the light is bouncing off of particles in the sky and diffusing. And so things get less crisp, which means that your value range needs to become smaller and it shifts to the lighter side of values. So we can also see that the color shifts. So here, this mountain and this mountain are roughly the same color in real life. So if we were to go and we were to stand on this hill and look down, we would see the same plants as if we stood over here and looked down. So we have to change the value and the color in our painting in order to do this. So here we have the saturated greens, and we even have more when we get up here closer to the viewer, to where we would be standing. We can see that we have more bright yellows and things like that, and those get more shifted to blue as we get further back. We have this big line here between two different areas, and so this tells us instinctively that when we're standing here and we're looking out, that this is one kind of plane of area and this is another one, because the value shift happens right here. So that's atmospheric perspective that's helping us do this. So how do we shift value and color back in a natural way when we're working on a painting? So if we look here at a value scale, which is just dark to light, that will help us understand how the colors are. So the blue and the Viridian green are very dark colors. So this is ultramarine blue and Viridian green. And so if we imagine if we have a hillside here, that's gonna look pretty dark. So I'm gonna come in with some yellow ochre. Okay, I have yellow ochre and Viridian green. Okay, and then I'm going to have ultramarine blue and Viridian green and a little bit of yellow ochre mixing in here. Okay, so what we can see between these two colors is that the Viridian green and yellow ochre mixed together have a lot more brightness to them, and the ultramarine added to it really darkens it up, but it also makes it more blue. So if I apply this color here, this is the green and what we're using for yellow, the yellow ochre mixture. Okay, so I can see that and I can say, yep, that's a color that I might see outside my window. Now, if I come in just with this mixture where I've added more blue to it, it's the same colors and then added blue, you'll notice the problem here is that this hillside now behind it is a lot darker. So if we look at our values, we can see that we're getting darker in value, and we need to be doing the other thing. We need to be going lighter in value. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a little bit of this white. We're gonna add it in. This is the titanium white. It is very strong. I have a whole video on titanium white versus zinc white if you want to learn the difference. This, we can see, we work it in here. Now we have the same color but a different value, right? Now if we look at adding zinc white, which I'm just going to do with my brush here, to this one, we'll see that we'll get a step in between. So it's not so Easter egg, but the value has decreased, but it's also increased its transparency. So I would say just go ahead and use the titanium white to make things recede into the background. And then you can add it a little slower and then add just a little bit more blue. So you add more blue, then every time you add more blue, you have to add more white because the blue has darkened. Maybe even more white than that since this one was so white. And then the other thing too is think about scale. So as you go back, if this section here, let's say is 1 inch, and this section was 1 inch, this hill would be taller than this hill. So just have them shrink and they go as they go back if they're the same size hills. And that's why if you do a giant mountain way in the background, you can fit it. It's like magical shrinking powers. You can fit it by making it more blue, more white. Oop. It's not uncommon for things to change when you get them next to the color next to it. Okay, more blue, more white. And see, all of a sudden that's a really far away mountain. So closer to you, to the viewer, to the foreground, the more saturated the color, the darker in values, the more contrast. Further away, more towards the top of your painting, of your page itself, or in the background, the lighter, the bluer. That's your general rule of thumb for how to mix your colors. So you want to take the same colors that you have in here and build on those. If you don't, they're not going to make sense, they're not going to mix in, and they're not going to feel like it's the same kind of hillside. Here are two examples that I wanted to show you. These are little sketches I've done. They're paintings, but I just think of them as little sketches because this was planning out for a bigger piece that I later did. But you can see that the atmospheric perspective is happening here because the fog has rolled into this valley. And here are the tree trunks. This is from a forest fire, so the trees don't have any leaves. But the trees down here do, but they're in the gray, they're in the fog. This is an extreme example. We haven't gone very far down the hill before we have lost all the detail. And then even further, we have none, but that's consistent. Over here, we can see we have a hillside. We have that value shift again between foreground and background. Not a lot of middle ground in either one of these, but you can see that we have a value shift here. These mountains are the same kind of mountains as these mountains, but we've taken out all of the color and made it pretty much a monochromatic version. It's like the sky gets put on top of your background. So, because that's what's really happening, whether it's smoke, pollution, which is not fun to think of, but happens, or fog, when we have an atmospheric perspective, we're scattering the color away and the details away and leaving this shift. Now, a third example here is when we don't have atmospheric perspective, because sometimes knowing when not to do something is just as important as knowing when to do it, right? So here I was plein air painting a bend in the Rogue River here in Southern Oregon. This is Hog Creek Boat Ramp, really fun spot to look out and paint. And this is a hill right here that's just starting to have a little bit of atmospheric perspective, but I pushed it more than it was in real life just to get a little bit of this hill to sit back a bit. But we don't have a big distance between the foreground, kind of the middle ground, and the background. It's not like this is miles apart. This is just around the bend. And so something like that, we're not gonna have a lot of perspective added by having atmosphere piled on top of here. That would look odd. That would be like, why is that hill sunny? Or why is this all sunny and why is that hill foggy? It wouldn't make any sense to us. So knowing when to use this shift is just as important as when not to. I hope these examples from my own work on when I use atmospheric perspective and when I don't help. And just remember, the further away something is, the more atmospheric perspective occurs. I have a great handout on foreground, middle ground, and background that might also help you with this, and I'm going to put that in the comments below. And also, if you are enjoying these videos that I'm making, I invite you to hit the like button or subscribe button, because that tells YouTube to show it to more people, and I appreciate your support. And I'll see you next time. Thanks.